Hey there, good evening. Welcome to the Curious Vlog. This is October 27th, which means we are 4 months in to the year of 32, the Curious Vlog itself, and the Great Galavar. And I figured I would talk a little bit about that today. If you've been following along, I have posted an installment of the Great Galavar every week without fail. Sometimes a little late, but I've not missed an episode, and we're 4 months into it now. Decent amount of words on the old word count. We're still on the same day of the story. In fact, we're just a few hours away from the starting point. It's been a slow walk through the events of that day, which is a festival day. Introducing some of the characters, introducing the setting, introducing Galavar, giving you a chance to have a look at him. It's hard for me to try and get into the mind of teenage Galavar. It's kind of hard for me to do with teenage characters in general, let alone children. Even though I started The Curious Tale when I was a teenager, I don't know that I trust myself to depict teenagers accurately. I think my characterizations tend to be a little more advanced than teenagers generally are. It's probably an error that's true of me generally. I probably generally depict characters as a little more sophisticated, a little more intelligent than people actually are. But I think it applies even more so with teenagers. Nevertheless, I've sort of been trying to find his voice, trying to find the voices of these other characters. I don't know that I'm there yet. You can read the installments and decide for yourself, but I think I have a ways to go. But I'm working on it, and that's what the draft is for. The serial nature of the Great Galavar also serves as the first draft. Eventually I'll do another draft, presumably a final draft. And I imagine I'll make many changes that time around, so this time I feel free to make mistakes. When I did Maid of Son, or when I announced Maid of Son, I said that one of the great things about Maid of Son is that I can hold myself to a lower standard than I did with After the Hero, and I have done so, but I have still held myself to a very high standard. With the Great Galavar, which has a focus on posting every week no matter what, I've allowed myself to have an even lower standard. That probably doesn't sound like something one should brag about, but the trade-off is that I can be more experimental and go ahead and put it out there for everyone to see and not have to worry so badly about whether my decisions were the right ones and whether my writing is all that good, because I know that I can redo it in the future. And really, the point of this is to do a serial, to have a serial. When you read Maid of Son, you're going to see that it's much more polished and, believe it or not, faster paced. But that's strange to say, because Maid of Son has a very slow pace. The Great Galavar in the final draft will have a faster pace. This slow pace is partly a reflection of the fact that I'm still figuring out where the story is going to go. It's the story of Galavar, of how he becomes the Galavar that we know. And when I first conceived of it, I laid out all of the milestones along the road, but there's a lot to fill in along the way, and a lot of that isn't in place yet, even 16 or 17 weeks into the venture. I have done some planning, some character development behind the scenes, in addition to what you see on the page. But I still have a lot of developmental work left to do. And as I get more of that done, I think the story will begin to pick up its pace a little bit. There's also the fact that many of my readers have expressed to me that shorter posts, shorter updates are better. This kind of goes against my own disposition. I tend to enjoy a longer read. not just with the Great Galavar, but people have mentioned that in general, the shorter my entries are, the better. So that's another reason that the story has gone on a bit of a slow pace, which is because I don't want to put too much in a given week. So where I might have an opportunity to do another scene, maybe I'll just chop it off there and leave the other scene for next week. I've done that a few times. And in general, I'm taken to aiming for about 1,000 to 2,000 words for each week of the Great Galavar. So to the extent I have respected that, we're about, I can count, 16 or 17,000 words in. It's actually more than that because the prologue was pretty long. But, we're underway. And it's not all that much, 16, 17,000 words. That's a decent amount, but we're still very early in the story. This most recent episode, I just posted it today. I've been looking forward to writing for a while. It's not as if I'm completely feeling my way in the dark. I do have a sense of some of the things that are coming up in the story. And today I got to write about Javelin expressing her interest in Galavar as a partner. And I had planned for that pretty much from the time that I developed the character, from the time that I first created this character, because Javelin is going to be a foil to Lilith Delatia later in the story. And moreover, she's going to be a foil to Galavar himself. In fact, she already is. And that will only become more developed over time. So things like that are in place, and I really was looking forward to doing this episode for a while. And then, of course, I had to write it in a hurry because something happened over the weekend, and I was taken away from the computer, and I didn't have the time to work on this that I wanted. I wrote the episode on Monday, excuse me. I wrote it today on Monday, and I was kind of in a hurry because I was a day late. But I had been looking forward to it, and it's nice to do. Nice, just to... I don't write romance very often, and this is not, if you haven't read it, it's not like sex scene or even particularly explicit. It's basically just her asking him to be his partner. And it's an area that I don't get into very often, but I like the opportunity to do it now, and there'll be more of that as the Great Galavar goes on. So, as it stands now, they're about done with Dawn's Eve. We're going to have a scene at the Fateful Well, and then I think that's going to be the end of the day. And then the next day will begin, and after that point, the episodes are not necessarily going to be a continuous flow, where the next episode picks off immediately where the prior one left off. I do plan to have more of a pinpointed focus in the future. Not that this hasn't been pinpointed. I've sort of just been experimenting, like I said, with the idea of an episode that's really just one big episode broken up into pieces. Once we get past this day in the story, the eve of the dawn, we'll go to the next day, which is the day of the dawn. We're going to get to see the academy, which is where Galavar and all the children in Ache grow up and learn. And we're going to get to see some of the other characters. Galavar has friends outside of the athletes. He was just spending today with the athletes because he just did the big relay. So we're going to get to meet some of the other characters. In fact, of the characters introduced so far, there are only a handful of important ones. Most of them were just there. And that's a feature of my writing. So, there's one other thing I wanted to say, which is that because I haven't gotten all of the story planning done, you may have noticed that the world of Relance, as expressed through Ache, doesn't seem all that foreign from Earth. You could almost imagine a place like this existing somewhere on Earth. And I'm not going to say that that is a goal of mine to avoid in Relance, because it's not. I don't mind some resemblance. But there is a lot more fantasy to the curious tale than has been evident so far. And that's because I tend to be very conservative with my world building when I haven't done enough planning. And like I said, because I'm still in the process of planning out the story and developing the Achille culture and the characters and the plotline itself, I have not introduced a lot of Relance-specific elements. I've introduced some, maybe you would call it a lot, but compared to Curious Tale works in general, they have actually been very conservative. And that's just my fallback, because I don't want to commit myself to cultural and ecological developments and then have to backtrack later if I decide that I don't want them. So I tend not to introduce things until I'm pretty sure that they're going to continue to be a part of the Curious Tale. And that has been something of a limiting factor, and it's something that I'm looking to get much better at in the near future as we go through the Great Galavar. I want to show off more of Relance and use the Great Galavar as more of a world-building instrument or seed. So I guess that's all for this week, for this month. I've got plenty to do. I'm running behind schedule. If you followed my journal, you know that I'm looking for work, and I've just had to spend so much time on that. And I haven't got enough time for things, which I suppose is a nice problem to have. So I'll cut it off there, and I will see you in a month. Let me know what you think.